On ye Vikings, fight for red and green, with a firm determination, we will surely win. On ye Vikings, fight for red and green. Fight, Vikings, fight, fight, fight for Normandy.
In 1982, I graduated from Normandy High School. I was number 19 in a class of over 400 students. Our schools were a perfect balance of racial integration at that time and a model for academic achievement. They also provided extraordinary programs for students, including a music program that outperformed most in the state of Missouri and was nationally recognized. While you enjoy the band performance, let me give you a little understanding of the kind of Viking that I am. And I'll begin with this true story. I was hired as a contracted percussion clinician for the marching drum line at my high school when I graduated in 1982. In 1984, our band traveled to Whitewater, Wisconsin for the Marching Bands of America's Summer National Championships. The Jefferson City High School Band from Jefferson City, Missouri also traveled to the championships that year. They were an arch nemesis of ours at Normandy, and in the marching arena, they were a hump that we couldn't quite get over. Well, Jefferson City's band finished ahead of us at Nationals. And what was even worse is that they took the Outstanding Percussion Award at a national competition. I knew that we would never hear the end of that. In the fall of 1984, we met Jefferson City at a competition in Springfield, Missouri. They had banners on their bus windows that read, "Best Drumline in the Country." Well, on that day, Normandy High School Marching Drumline beat the Jeff City Drumline Ensemble. While I never felt inflated enough to put a banner up that read, "Best Drumline in the Country," the thought was always nice. In those days, we didn't care where you were from, what race, creed, or color you were. We just believed in achievement. So how does a school system of that caliber, with all of the best systems working, racial and its socioeconomic diversity, high standards of achievement, committed teachers, students, community, etc., turn into the poorest, blackest, lowest performing, unaccredited school system in the state? And just in a period of 32 years since I graduated.
We failed ourselves, we failed our children, and we cannot blame somebody else for the problem that we've created.
I must state for the record that I fully accept my responsibility in the dismantling of the Normandy School District. Before the Missouri State Supreme Court ruled on the transfer law, my wife and I used every device at our disposal to make certain that our child would never attend the Normandy schools. In 1997, we bought our home in the Normandy School District in Hanley Hills. My daughter was 3 years old at the time. When my daughter was of kindergarten age, her mother took a position as an administrator in the University City School District. This allowed us to enroll our daughter in a University City school, and we did that. We chose Flynn Park Elementary. When our daughter was going to the second grade, her mother accepted a position as a principal in the Winfield School District. So we enrolled our daughter in the Winfield schools. When our little darling had reached her middle school years, I rented a place in the nearby village of St. John so that our daughter could attend the Rittner Middle School. When our daughter reached her high school years, we got her enrolled in the volunteer DSAG program in the St. Louis City Public Schools. She was accepted to the Metro Academic and Classical High School. Metro had long been ranked as the best public high school in the entire state of Missouri. Even as a devout Viking for life, I didn't want to put my daughter through that school system. So when parents want to send their children to higher performing schools, I understand. I can even understand there being a law that provides for this opportunity. What I cannot understand nor can I abide by is the idea of the Normandy School District being forced to pay other school districts more money than it received to educate a child. If a parent chose to put their child in a different school district and the money follows the child, so be it. But paying exorbitant tuitions to affluent school districts because of a state-sanctioned punishment against unaccredited school districts is pure bullshit.
Good morning, and thanks so much, Mr. Green, Mr. Bryce. First of all, we'd like to say welcome, not only to our young people who are already a part of this wonderful campus, but to the wonderful young people from the Wellston School District, and let you know how much we value your presence here this morning and how much we look forward to working collaboratively as a team in the future. One thing that I think we have to keep in mind as we contemplate the next few days and the next few months leading up to this merger is we want to make certain that we focus on the most important thing. The most important thing is education. The reason we all come together, the reason we compete athletically and compete in other activities is because it's a way of bringing students together to learn the importance of fellowship, the importance of healthy competition, but more importantly, the importance of education. And so going forward, what we hope to accomplish this morning and this afternoon is a coming together, a meeting of the minds, because we're going to try to downplay the rivalry for obvious reasons, because in a few short months, the rivalry will be history. And what we want to emphasize is the importance of coming together as a team. One community, one school, all of us supporting you, helping prepare you for the future. And so young people, I want to applaud you this morning for being courageous. I've told a lot of adults in the community that the young people are going to step up to the plate. And they're going to surprise some folks because people who anticipated this merger in a not so positive way, I think the young people from both schools are going to prove them wrong. And so I want to encourage you to do that. Again, welcome to Normandy School District, and we're just very pleased to have you. Good morning.
Every Normandy Viking that I knew and spoke to were completely outraged by this merger. Some because of the long-standing indifference between the Wellston schools and the Normandy schools. Others, like myself, because this would put together a failed school system and a failing school system. And the only logical result of this sort of merger would be more failure. Desi took control of the Wellston School District in 2005 after it had been unaccredited for 2 years. Now, a reasonable person would naturally believe that the state body responsible for overseeing school accreditation will certainly show us all how to turn around a low-performing, high-poverty black school system. These are the scholars, and they know all of the best methods. They'll install a special administrative board and take away the right to elect one, thereby removing the voice of the poor black people who need the voice most of all. They'll remove teacher tenure, fire all of the teachers and make them apply for their jobs again, bust the unions, hand out money to their cronies with professional development and curriculum packages, and produce high-performing, poor black children in the end of the process. Right? I was not surprised that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education would want to pawn off their failure. I was, however, completely shocked that the Board of Education of the Normandy School District and its superintendent would accept that failure. At the time, Normandy Schools was working with a $66 million budget and the Wellston school system was working with an $8 million budget. So it appeared to be a money grab for all practical intents and purposes. Yet, it made me wonder, what sort of Board of Education and superintendent are we dealing with?
As one board member against the other self-serving six, I could not get the board to hold themselves or the superintendent accountable to do what was best for the students' academic and social success. The incompetent boards over many years paved the way for DESE to take over the district. I say to every resident 18 and older, especially younger voters 18 to 40, who did not get off their ass and vote out the numerous incompetent boards, you also contributed to the district's failure as well as those of you who voted for the board members who fail year after year to govern in the best interest of the students.
From the seat, I questioned every decision and objected to most everything that the other board members did. I was not there to be their friend. I was there to serve the community, and I made that extremely clear. I felt as though they were a large part of the failure that had brought this situation about. I also felt that if they were people of principle, they would have resigned by now, because why do you keep running in a situation and a circumstance that is just failing so miserably? I would have run for one term, and if I couldn't turn it around, I'd have never run again. I'd have never shown my face in the community again. I really wanted to gain the community's trust. The shooting of our unarmed Viking, Normandy High School graduate Michael Brown, unveiled a horrific truth about St. Louis County's predatory municipal courts and policing structures. Some of these fiefdoms were so out of control that Missouri State Attorney General Chris Koster filed a lawsuit against 13 of them for collection of excessive traffic fees, which is capped by state law at 30%. Of the 13 municipalities listed in the original filing by Chris Koster, 9 of them are part of the 24 municipalities that make up the Normandy footprint. 24 municipalities for most means 24 opportunities for Normandy School District folks and others to be preyed upon by municipal courts and their quota-driven police officers. Let's examine one of those 9 poverty-profiteering purgatories, so that we may understand how this injustice system plays into the scheme of the dismantling of my school district. This is the City Hall of Veneta Terrace, often referred to as Veneta Terrorist. A quaint little hamlet with a population of about 277 people, 73% of whom are black. I visited the court on one night in the spring and found that 94% of those with violations being reviewed were black. And as we've seen over and over again, the judge, prosecutor, and court administrator are all white. On that evening, the police were all white as well. Poverty plays a tremendous role in the failures of a school district. So when blacks can't work, the school system dies. Even more, when blacks are relegated to unnecessary indebtedness for the profiteering of these municipalities, their families, especially their children, are caused great distress. In Veneta Terrace, a number of the defendants fell victim to an illegal left turn onto or crossing Hanley Road from the Hanley Hills Shopping Center. A police officer sits near the position during many of the daytime hours. As it is indicated by the sign, you can only turn right on the Hanley Road. You can't cross and you can't make a left turn, like this sign indicates, which used to hang on the same pole as the right turn only sign. No one knows why it was removed, but the current signage tends to reduce the number of violators. If you make an illegal turn across the road, you get a fine of $70.50, plus court costs of $24.50, which brings you to $95. Before April 15th this year, 2015, if during a stop you failed to produce an insurance card, you were fined another $350 plus court costs. Now, not only is this excessive, but it's prohibitive. If you showed up in court with your insurance card, the fine wasn't dismissed. It was simply reduced to $250 plus court costs. This has been modified since April 15th of 2015 in the wake of the pending lawsuit. But what of the many lives that were damaged by the economic brutalization? What of the parents criminalized by this punitive system and the children suffering under the pain of the parents? There's absolutely no redress. Another, we're sorry, just get over it. Some of the village's paid positions include 5 trustees that earn a total of $12,000 a year, so that's about $2,400 each. 2 trustees are black. The court administrator earns about $18,000 a year. She's white. Prosecutor, who also serves as city attorney, earns about $12,000 a year. The judge gets about $6,000 a year. Now the board chair, Miss Elaine Greiner, also earns another $5,600 to serve as the town's de facto mayor. So that brings her to a total earning of about $8,000. To add to the beauty of her life, she's been able to enjoy a living on the taxes of the people of the Normandy School District for about 20 years now, a number of whom have been ensnared in the Veneta terrorist fines and fees trap. Ms. Greiner works as senior secretary for the Normandy schools, currently earning $45,746 a year.
One of the first decisions that we had to make coming on July 1 was the transfer law decision, the Brightonfield decision back in June. And so one of the first decisions that we had to do with the board was to make a recommendation of what school district would actually receive the transportation, or where we would transport kids. And the way the law was written is we were required to provide transportation for at least one district until they would fulfill, and then in the case of Review Gardens, they had to pick 2. But we picked Francis Howell. And so we looked at a series of criteria that we thought were necessary in making a decision, and that's why we picked Francis Howell. One of those decisions was, of course, financial. Their cost per tuition was very similar to ours. It wasn't significantly higher than it was for us. We also looked at the districts that were of distinction based on MSIP 5 standards. And they were one of the top 5 districts. When we looked at the preliminary results from the year before, they were in the top 5 or 6 at that time. We also looked at what we call proximity as far as the zone. The majority of our footprint sits between the Page extension going out and Highway 70. And we looked at all the districts that were around us in close proximity, and the size, because we also had to consider the size of the district and being able to receive all of our kids. Well, even though Clayton is very close, one of the most affluent districts in the area, they didn't have the capacity to take over 1,000 kids if they'd have chosen that, and we knew that. Some of the other districts that are north of us and south of us didn't have accreditation with distinction elements, so they were all either provisional or just accredited and barely accredited in that sense. And so when we looked at all those factors, Francis Howell seemed to meet all those criteria. And so we chose Francis Howell. And I know a lot of people think we just picked Francis Howell because there were a lot of, at that time, Republican leaders. I think the House representative, not the House, but the Senate Republicans pro tem was from Francis Howell. We weren't picking on Francis Howell as opposed to other districts. We just thought it was the best decision taken in consideration all those criteria at that time.
I deserve to not have to worry about my children getting stabbed or taking a drug or getting robbed.
We don't want this here in Francis Hall.
I grew up with this. I'm not going to have it for my son. So will this district send my son to a better school when this one goes down?
The Channel 4 report was clearly sensational, but it's not exactly fair when you consider that it does not let us know that just 2 months prior, the people of Francis Howell were likely reading this D-Day-sized headline in the only daily printed newspaper in our small town. They didn't necessarily have to be racist to feel the way they did, just afraid. That certainly doesn't justify using this to describe the children. That was completely racist. We do, however, have to consider the years of scary black stories that have been circulated about Normandy schools, some even nationally. Now that's pretty damn scary. How many of us would not remove our children from a school system if we believed that there were possibly HIV-infected thugs on their way to join us? The media can do a hell of a number on you. Not to say that it made any of this up, but there are so many mind-blowing stories that happen in schools across the nation that never reach the light of day. Normandy just seemed to make a great source for powerful, news-selling headlines and top stories.
We gotta take action. So what it's looking like is that we're gonna have to file lawsuits and do other things. And that's the only way. And you guys know that. You're very smart, educated people. Just like I am. I go to Normandy. I'm a junior, not a gangbanger or anything what you expect of me. Not a statistician. Thank you.
So why the dismantling of the Normandy School District? Well, because I let it happen. But I was not alone. Those of us who stood idly by while our schools were failing and did nothing to ensure accountability, we aided in the dismantling. The failed school boards should have long since been removed. And that includes the Missouri State School Board of Education. DESE should have been dismantled a long time ago, and those tax dollars used to provide services that would enrich the lives of children and put them on a course of academic and life success. You have to wonder why high stakes tests are used to determine the effectiveness of an educational system, especially when all of the data shows that minority children, particularly black children, fare worse than whites. There's a quote that's attributed to Albert Einstein that says, "Everyone is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid." Why are our fish being judged by their ability to climb a tree? Because it makes for a well-crafted method of taking away power from those people. Those people. The fight and the right for people to elect and govern their own system is being stripped away from those that need it the most. Someone once said to me, "Terry, you really speak truth to power." And I just laughed because I reflected on something that one of my favorite lecturers and scholars, the brilliant Dr. Noam Chomsky, once said regarding speaking truth to power. He said, "Power already knows the truth." In my mind, and this is just me, my thoughts, making power act on what they know to be true and right for everyone, that has to continue to be the crusade.